Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd fa'awzu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So last week we were looking at the responsibilities of the wife. The main thing is that each spouse has to actively fulfill the needs of the other spouse. So you need to be aware of their needs, aware of your responsibilities, and you need to be proactive about it. So they don't even get a chance to complain. They don't even get a chance to say, why is this not how it should be, etc. Right? So each person needs to be proactive in the fulfilling the needs of the spouse. So the next hadith is on page 11. Hazrat Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, reported that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, when a woman who has been called to come to her husband's bed refuses, and he spends the night angry, the angels curse her till the morning. Okay, this is very serious in terms of the consequences of this. But what's the context here now? Husband and wife are married, each have needs. From a physiological point of view, the man has a higher sexual need and sexual drive than a woman does. Okay, you could argue that a woman has more of a materialistic type of needs. Yeah. From my experience through life, women would be happier with materials like more clothes and belongings and things like that, a bit more luxury, a bit more comfort, whereas guys probably less so. Okay, so each one has different needs. So here what's being said is, husband is saying, asking the wife to come to bed basically to engage in sexual relations. What's the first thing is, should he need to call her or ask? No. What should happen is the wife should understand that the husband has these needs, and she should be proactive in fulfilling them needs. But if the husband is calling the wife to bed to have sexual relations, which is a need of his and a need of hers, but his more, and she says no, what kind of excuses could she make? I'm tired, right? Or I can't be bothered washing my hair, or I can't be bothered doing ghusl, or I'm not in the mood, or I'm not up for it, or I'm going to be, many different reasons she could give or excuses she could give. Okay. And if he then, as a result of this refusal and as a result of these kind of responses he gets from her, what ends up happening? They don't end up having sexual relations because she refused, because she's saying, I'm tired. And then he now is angry with her because he's like, I have a need and you're saying no. The only halal way I have to fulfill this is through you, and you're blocking that by saying no. And then he's thinking, well, I fulfill all of your needs. When it comes to money, food, clothing, everything is done. So why is it that when I have a need, my need is not being looked after? I mean, it's your needs are being looked after. So the husband, if he goes to sleep now angry with his wife, so he's not happy the fact that she's refused him his needs, then the angels will curse her till the morning. What's happening here is she's making an excuse and not fulfilling her duty to her husband, which is then resulting in him being upset and angry as a result of this. But does everybody understand the kind of that scenario? Now, what if she's genuinely unwell? Okay, so he asks her to come to bed for sexual relations. She's genuinely unwell, and she says, look, I'm actually unwell, right? Genuinely. And she's not well enough to engage in sexual relations. Now, is she going to be cursed till the morning? No, because she has a genuine reason, and Allah knows that she has a genuine reason. And the husband should be gentle about this, and he should know like that she's not well. Or what if that all day she's been fine, they've been going out all day, they've been out for a meal, everything's been fine, and now all of a sudden he says, come upstairs, and she's saying, I'm not feeling well. And he'll be like, hold on, what's going on here? You've been chilling out all day. We've been going here and there. You've been fine. Comes to the end of the day, you're not feeling well all of a sudden, right? You're just making excuses. The idea here is then to encourage the women, if they genuinely have a genuine excuse, fine. If they don't have a genuine excuse, then not to just be making excuses and refusing, even though it has to put them out. So what? Okay, they have to have a shower. They have to wash their hair. They have to, and it's going to be an hour or 2 hours before they can actually go to sleep. It's about fulfilling each other's needs. What if she makes an excuse up and says, oh, I'm not up for it, I'm not in the mood. And he says, oh, no worries, that's fine. And he's not angry with her. Now they both go to sleep. Are the angels going to curse her till the morning? No. It's only in a scenario where she's using this as a tool to kind of harm him in a way by saying, look, I'm not up for it, or no, or she's upset about something else and she's saying, I'm going to take it out on you by refusing to come to your bed. He spends the night angry, the angels curse him till the morning. Who uses this hadith more? The men are going to use it more, the women are going to use it more. So the men will use this hadith. They'll say, look, I asked you to come to engage in sexual relations and you're saying no, and the angels are going to curse you till the morning. But what might have happened during the day is he might have beaten her up during the day. They might have had an argument. He might have ended up beating her. Right? He's beat her till she's black and blue, and now in the evening he's saying to her, come to bed. So see the context here now. Now, if you throw this hadith in there and say, oh, look, angels are going to curse you till the morning. Well, what have you done to me during the day? And now you're saying angels are going to curse me till the morning. This is the issue. So women, from their point of view, they need to be clear that this is a need of the husband and you have to be proactive in fulfilling that need. Then in a version by both of them, so and both referring to Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim, that by him in whose hand my soul is, this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, if any woman who has been called to come to her husband's bed refuses, he who is in the heaven is displeased with her till her husband is pleased with her. Okay. So what's been linked in this particular hadith is the pleasure of the husband. If the pleasure of the husband is there, the husband's pleased with the wife, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be pleased with that lady as well. This is why there's a friend of ours and his relative passed away. Before he passed away, he said to his wife that I'm pleased with you. Right? Nothing to do in this context, but generally he just said to his wife that I'm very pleased with you. I'm really happy and pleased with you. And this was the context there, that if a husband is pleased with the wife, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always be pleased with her. Why? Meaning, why is he going to be pleased if his needs are being fulfilled and she's fulfilling a role and responsibility? Then why shouldn't he be pleased with her? So the idea is that the pleasure of the husband is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he who is in the heaven is displeased with her then until her husband is pleased. So when her husband is pleased, Allah is pleased. Why is Allah pleased? Because she's fulfilling her duty and fulfilling her roles and responsibilities. And this is the context of that. So, any questions regarding them two hadiths which have the same theme?
You know the first one?
Yeah.
Is that one of the causes of cheating for men when their wife isn't pleasing?
I think definitely what happens is when look, there's two things. When the means to halal is being blocked, then the temptation toward haram is going to increase, isn't it? So when a wife is being proactive in fulfilling her husband's sexual needs, he's not going to have the urge to go elsewhere. He's happy. But when she blocks him, he might think, prostitute. I'll go to a prostitute now and fulfill my needs there. If you're blocking me, I'll go pay somebody £50 and fulfill my sexual needs there. Right? Which is haram to do. It doesn't give him the excuse or the right to go and do that. It's still adultery. However, what happens is when halal is blocked, then the door to haram is open. So what the wives need to understand then is that if they block the door to halal, then the chances their husband's going to go down the haram route. Similarly, on the other side, if the husband's not providing for his wife financially, and her halal route to maintain attaining wealth and food and things are blocked, what she might go start stealing because she has to fulfill her needs, right? So this is the idea here, right? So the idea is that often guys, will engage in extramarital sexual relations because the wife is not fulfilling the needs. However, there are many cases where the wife is fulfilling his needs, but he's still going elsewhere in addition. But if she knows his needs, like the sisters who will come to me for counseling and with their husbands, and they'll be like, well, he won't come near me for 2-3 weeks. The women are complaining that my husband won't come near me, and that's making me think, what's wrong with him? Like he's 4 months or 3 months or 2 weeks or 1 month he's not touched me. He won't come near me. I'm telling him to come to bed. I'm dressing up for him. I'm trying to encourage him, and he won't do it. Now, is he gay? Is he homosexual? Is that what's happened? Am I married to a gay man? Or is he going elsewhere? Has he got a girlfriend on the side that he's fulfilling his sexual needs with? What's wrong? There's something not right here. It's not normal for a man not to want to approach his wife for 2 months. So these things come about. So definitely guys will go elsewhere if the halal route is being blocked and they don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fear the consequence. Rather, there's people who even go down the divorce route. They'll say, look, I've got a wife, she's not fulfilling my sexual needs. One is like his needs are being fulfilled in the sense of she's having sexual relations with him, but he's not satisfied. And that's not ever an issue, really. It's a case of she's saying no. And he's like, what do I do? Next two days later, he's saying, come up, to bed. No. 2 days later, no. So it's like always no. Why is it not ever yes? Why are you having to battle for your needs and have your needs fulfilled in this way? So this is the thing. So being proactive in fulfilling the needs is very important. Okay. The next hadith then, Hazrat Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when a woman observes the 5 times of prayer, fasts during Ramadan, preserves her chastity, and obeys her husband, she may enter by any of the gates of paradise she wishes. Meaning, what are these things that I mentioned? The pillars of Islam, aren't they? Prayer, fasting, right? And then what else is it? Preserving her chastity, which is also obligatory. Obeying a husband, which is also obligatory. But obeying a husband in what context? When the instruction or the command is in line with the Sharia and the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she's as well as a salah and a fasting, she's preserving her honor and her chastity, she's obeying her husband. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger is saying that there's 8 gates of paradise, and she can choose which gate of paradise she wants to enter through. Meaning that's how welcoming paradise will be for her. Yeah. So, for example, there's a lady and she's not married yet. Her focus should be on the pillars of Islam: praying, fasting, zakat, hajj, etc. When she gets married, in addition to the pillars of Islam, she should think, right, I need to preserve my chastity, preserve my honor, and obey my husband's commands and instructions. But again, this obeying the husband is not like a master-slave relationship. It's about someone's in charge of the house and we need to work together as a team to get the job done. And that's all it is, basically. Next hadith, Hazrat Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, said that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if I were to order anyone to prostrate himself before another, I would order a woman to prostrate herself before her husband. Okay. So again, this is another hadith that men often mention. What happened was Sahaba would travel out to far lands. And there was one particular companion and he saw a king being prostrated to by his people. So the people were prostrating to the king and doing sajda to the king and bowing to him. When the Sahabi came back to the Prophet ﷺ and explained that I saw this king and this king was being prostrated to by his followers. If that's what's going on, then I feel we should prostrate to you, O Messenger of Allah. Right? If they're prostrating to the king, you're our king. We should prostrate to you. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, you should not prostrate to me. Right? It's not something that I will allow. If I were to order people to prostrate to anyone, meaning that no one's allowed to prostrate to anybody. You can't do sajda to anyone. Sajda is to Allah. He said, you can't even do sajda to me as a prophet and messenger of Allah. But if I were to, hypothetically speaking, if I were to command someone and say, you need to prostrate yourself before so-and-so, I would say to a woman, prostrate yourself before your husband. So a woman to prostrate herself before the husband. In terms of respect, in terms of honor, in terms of like when Allah Almighty said to Iblis, prostrate before Adam. That wasn't a prostration of worship. It was a prostration of respect and honor. But this is on the basis that the husband is someone who's also following Sharia, isn't it? The husband is not fulfilling his duties towards his wife, then this is not the kind of husband that the Prophet ﷺ is referring to here, where the wife would be instructed to, prostrate to the husband. The idea here isn't the actual prostration, it's the level of respect that is due, right? The level of respect that is due from one person to the other. This is the idea, the context behind these. So these hadiths I've mentioned here, both after the mention of the responsibilities of the wife and after mentioning the responsibility of the husband, these hadiths underpin the bullet points that I've mentioned when I'm saying the husband be head of the household, he gives the mahar. These bullet points on page 9 and 11 rather, they've been taken from these Quranic verses, these hadiths. So I've put as bullet points the responsibilities, but what are they actually? They are the learnings and teachings from the hadith. Now, people ask me, who should attend a course like this, right? So there's a number of people, they've joined the course from online, so they're watching the videos, going through the notes from home, etc., due to various commitments and things. So who should attend a course like this? People who are not married, people who are married. My answer is anyone who's not studied Islam and marriage. If you haven't studied, you could have been married for 10 years. But if you don't know the rules and the responsibilities of husband and wife, then you need to go back and study it. Could be that you're not married. It could be that you are married. It could be you're just married. Could be you're married for 10 years. It doesn't matter. If you've not studied this topic, you need to study the topic. It's as simple as that. So you're like, oh, we think it's more aimed towards those who are not married. So you as married people, do you know the responsibilities of each other? No, you're just having issues. The reason why you're having issues is because there's no rules and there's no structure and there's no formality in terms of what does each person need to do, what are the rules, responsibilities, etc.
Just go by what they know.
They go by what they know, which is what their mom did, what their dad did, what their friends are telling them, what they do with their husbands, what their sisters are telling them, what their brothers and friends are telling them. This is how it is. So it's not ever based on the teachings of Quran and Sunnah, really. It's always what someone's doing and what works and what doesn't work, etc. Any questions about that topic before we move on? Yes?
So let's say, for example,
Yeah.
extremely tired, alcohol, pain,
Yeah.
bit of
Yeah.
1 a.m. and then just says, right, talk or how are you? And then let's say if the woman says no, then would she still be cursed if you married her?
The thing is, if the hadith would apply in that context, in the sense that if she says no, okay, she's tired. He's not done. The thing is, in the Quran, it mentions that when the husband's about to approach his wife, he should do something good beforehand. The context here, right? So, meaning be good, be nice. Because what guys expect sometimes is that they could, at any point in time, just go and approach their wife and it's going to be perfect, right? And she's going to be willing and forthcoming and all of that. What women want is something where there's a build-up, there is conversation, there is some time spent together, there is a kind of not just you've been away all day and then all of a sudden you've come home and now you want to have sexual relations, etc. But if she refused, like the scenario you've given, and he goes to sleep angry with her, it would come under the hadith of her being cursed. There's a hadith which mentions that the Prophet ﷺ was traveling back to Medina Munawwara from a long journey with the Sahaba. And what he was saying to the companions was that don't come home all of a sudden. Like stay on the outskirts of the city so that the people of the city know that we're nearly home, which will give the women a chance to get themselves ready, comb their hair and etc. And he even mentions to the point of like removing pubic hair, etc., clean themselves, get themselves ready. So in order to fulfill their husband's needs when they come home. So having food ready, getting themselves ready, etc. So now in that scenario, husband's been away. There's no mobile phone. They've not been texting each other. They've not been calling each other. Husband might have been away for 3 months, right? She's busy running the whole household herself. He's come home after 3 months. The hadith is telling us what now? That he comes home and she has everything set to fulfill his needs when he comes. Right? Because there's no other way, is there? Like, where else is he going to go? And if he's been away for 3 months, he'll be hungry. He'll want to wash and clean himself. He'll want some nice clothes. He'll want to, have some sexual relations with his wife. So if 10 children is, it's a scenario there where obviously she's not a robot, is she? He's got to think as well that if I've, come home at 1 o'clock at night, she's tired, she's gonna wake up for Fajr Namaz in the morning, you got to be a bit more reasonable. If he wants to keep the marriage and maintain the marriage, he has to be reasonable as well. But if she refused, she would come under this hadith of the curse. Unless she's genuinely not well. Because when is she ever not going to have 10 kids? She's got 10 kids, doesn't she? And she's looking after them, she's tired. Is this a lifelong thing or is this a temporary thing? This is a lifestyle now. So then is she never going to say yes to him for sexual relations because she's got 10 kids and because she's tired? She's always going to have 10 kids and she's always going to be tired. So she has to fulfill his needs. Is that okay? So next thing, the nurturing a family on page number 12. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that it is He who created you from one soul and created from it its mate, that He might dwell in security with her. And when He covers her, she carries a light burden and continues therein. And when it becomes heavy, they both invoke Allah, their Lord. If you should give us a good child, we will surely be among the grateful. So here, this verse of the Quran in Surah Al-Araf is mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's created you from one soul. Who's the one soul? Adam alayhi salam. Yeah, one person, one soul. Adam alayhi salam. Created from it its mate. That's Hawa alayhi salam, Eve, his wife. That he might dwell in security with her. Yeah, in peace, in security, in happiness with her. When he covers her, meaning when he has sexual relations with her, she carries a light burden. This is referring to him now impregnating her. She is now pregnant. Light burden, meaning the fetus in the womb. And continues therein, meaning the fetus continues to develop inside the womb. And when it becomes heavy, meaning the pregnancy is now heavy pregnancy, they both invoke Allah, their Lord, meaning they're making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying, if you should give us a good child, we would surely be among the grateful. So they're showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing of a child. Not just any child, a good child, meaning a pious child is what they are making dua for. So you should make dua for a pious child before, when you're married and you wanted to have children, and while the wife is pregnant, there's also time to be making dua for the child and saying, if you should give us a good child, we will surely be among the grateful ones. Like it's a great blessing of Allah to have children, and we will be grateful to you if you grant us a child. So this is now tells us what? That one of the basic needs or one of the basic rights of each of the spouses to nurture a family. Like if you were to speak to somebody with a view of getting married and the person said to you that, I do not want to have children. Why? I just can't be bothered with that headache of having children, and it'll affect my lifestyle. I won't have the freedom that I have right now. That's a very big thing and a very important consideration, because what's one of the main reasons why a person would marry is to have children. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that marry, have children, on the day of judgment, I will boast regarding the number of my nation, right? The more children you have, the more Muslims there will be, the more the deen is going to be spread, okay? So it doesn't mean have more children than you feel you can manage and look after. However, what's mentioned here is that the fact that Allah's created it in this way so that people can procreate and have children. So the wife has a right to nurture the family. The husband has a right to nurture the family. And this is something. So if somebody said, and this is a key question to ask as well, is that, with a potential spouse, that would you be, wanting to have a family, have children, etc. Okay. The person says no, then that's a discussion to be had. If they say yes, then that's the kind of one of the key reasons why a person would marry, because you want to have children. So Hazrat Abu Sa'id and Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, they both reported that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he who has a son born to him should give him a good name and a good education, and marry him off when he reaches puberty. If he does not marry him off when he reaches puberty and he commits sin, its guilt rests only upon the father. Okay. So this hadith applies both he who has a son or daughter. What's the first duty that the parents have, or one of the first duties, is to give the child a good name. When it comes to parenting, and we're going to do a separate parenting course, I'm thinking like towards the end, last Sunday of July, once our Islamic studies course for children's over, last Sunday, we're going to do the parenting course. I've asked them if the room is available to hire. So one of the things we'll discuss then is that when does the upbringing of the child be a concern or something that's in the mind of an individual? When should that be? When should a person start thinking or having a concern in their mind about the upbringing of the child? At what stage? As soon as they're born, any earlier than that? What stage? Before marriage, after marriage? Before marriage. Because you know when they're choosing the spouse, who they're choosing? They're choosing, like for example, a man is choosing a spouse. He shouldn't just be looking for a wife. He's looking for a mother. Similarly, the lady, she is not only going to be looking at someone saying husband, she's selecting the father of us. A lot of people don't see this. They don't see that the person they're selecting, they think, oh, I'm selecting a husband who's going to be a good husband. And hopefully he'll be a good father as well. But you need, it's not only selecting a husband for yourself, you're selecting a father for your children. So you got to look at the person and think, will this person, not only as well as being a good husband to me, will he be a good father? Do I want my son to be like him? And the guy should be like, do I want my daughters to be like her? Because the mother is directly going to influence the girls, and the husband is directly influence the boys. When it comes to marriage, is it easy to get into a marriage? It's super easy to get into a marriage. How easy is it to get out? Very difficult, especially for women. So this has to be taken so seriously that, you know, if you're in doubt regarding somebody, leave it. Wait. Take your time. Because once you're in, you're stuck. There's people who I've come across, they get desperate and they'll just say yeah to anybody at a certain point in time. There you go. And then 1 year later, they're unmarried again now. But then now they've got the divorcee title as well. So you have to take this consideration very, very carefully, very seriously. It's a big decision, right? To bring somebody into your life in this manner. So it has to be given a lot of thought and consideration. So what's the thinking about the child's upbringing has to start before you select a spouse. Once you selected a spouse, it's a bit too late, because now the influence on your children is like, you got a husband who's always away. He works and he's always away. What kind of father is he going to be to your children? Right? Or you got a wife and your wife is always away. Or she's always at work and she's very career orientated. Then who's going to look after the children? Where's the balance going to be? Yeah. So a guy might be a millionaire, but he's always traveling around the world. And he's like, well, the wife is at home. Like the sister said, 10 children, tired, looking after them all. Husband's out all day. Then he's out working, and then he's out chilling at the same time. Is he going to make a good father? No. So you need to look at all of these things when he's a husband, before he's a husband, thinking, you know, as a father, how would your routine be? And what would you be doing with the children? For example, me and my son's got a pool table in the garage. I've turned my garage into a gym, and we've got a 5-foot pool table in there for him. So I've said to him, every day, we will do something you want to do, 20 minutes, whatever you want to do. He wants to play pool. So we've not done it yet today. So he goes, when are you playing pool? I says, when I come back, I'm going to finish class, I'm going to come home. He's up till Isha anyway, because he has to read Isha before he goes to sleep. I said, when I come home, we'll play 20 minutes of pool, right? And together. Now, if I'm always away, then how am I going to spend that time with my son? Right? Massive impact. I mentioned at Jummah that when it comes to influencing a child or anybody, you can't influence anybody without a connection. So what's the first thing you have to establish with somebody? A connection. When you have a connection with somebody, you can then influence that person. If I have a connection with my son, then am I going to be able to influence him? Yes. Even when it comes to, for example, Rishi Sunak now said they're going to have a general election. Let's say there's somebody out there who Rishi Sunak has a connection with. Are they going to be influenced by him? 100%. Right? Starmer, someone he has a connection with, they'll vote for him. Someone who is disconnected, I feel no connection with this guy, they're not going to vote for them. There's no connection, therefore there's no influence. There are people who say, you know, I have no connection with my dad. My dad tells me to do this and that, and I don't listen to him. Why does he not listen to his dad? Why is he not influenced by his dad? Because there's no connection. I have people who I know, students, etc. I could influence them very strongly. But what's the reason behind me being able to influence them very strongly? My connection with them. They've known me a long time. We've built up a relationship over time, and I can influence them. I say something, they'll do it because of my connection makes my influence stronger. If the connection is not there, the influence is not going to be there, right? So this is important. So what's one of the things you should do? Give him a good name. Ultimately, who is responsible for giving a good name to the child? The father. One step back, we'll say parents. Then if you go step back, say the family. So culturally, it's like auntie might say, oh, I want to name the child this. And, Hala saying this, and granddad saying this, and grandma saying this. People say that there's a number of people who said to me, Ustad, can you name our child, please? You choose a name for our child. What do I say to them? Look, I appreciate you asking me and giving me this honor of naming the child, but this naming of the child is for the parents, in particular the father. So the father has the last say in what the child should be named. But should he ask his wife, what do you think? They should definitely, between themselves, without being influenced by anybody else, they should discuss it. What name should we think of? 2 or 3 boys' names, 2 or 3 girls' names. And then they should collectively decide. And then sometimes women are a bit indecisive, by nature. And then the man should be like, okay, we're keeping this name. This is what we're going to decide. We're going to go for. And she's happy with that. So when you're saying the man decides the name of his son or his daughter, it doesn't mean the wife's not consulted. She is consulted. They make a decision together. But who does the final decision last with? The father. So if it's a ridiculous name that an auntie's thought of, then who's responsible for that ridiculous name? It's the father. It's your son. It's your daughter. You need to give them a good name. Yeah. You don't have to give them your name. It's advisable from a point of view of lineage, in terms of, my son has the name Ali because that's my surname. Okay. But if it was a girl, she doesn't necessarily have to take the father's name. Right? She could even take a mother's surname. The wife doesn't have to take the husband's name. This is again a cultural thing where the wife takes the husband's surname. Sometimes the wife takes the husband's first name. This is all cultural. But the wife can keep her name as it is. She doesn't have to change her surname to the husband's surname, because her surname will be coming from her family. Yeah. So you don't have to give your surname, but if you did, that would be good. Plus the other thing is, what's the norm in society, which is a good norm, in the sense that you give your surname to the child, it's a family surname, it's good. So we should give him a good name. And thought should go into what makes a name good? Good meaning. I ask people, what does your name mean? Don't know. You've got a name, you don't even know what it means. Does your dad know what the name means? No. Well, dad should choose a name, and then when the child is old enough to understand, he says, Putra, your name means this. Like, person's got a name, he doesn't even know what his name means. I didn't even realize that you needed to have a name which is a good meaning. Of course, it has to have a good meaning. Otherwise, it's one of the reasons why you have a name. People put so much time and effort into business names. What should I have? Should I have this? Should I have that? What impact will it have? How will people pronounce it? Is it going to be something that's going to connect instantly with customers? All of that. So when it comes to children, it's one of those things, good name. And in particular, the children should be given the names of the prophets and messengers, or the Sahaba and Sahabiyat, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, the prophets. Okay, these are the names that they should be given. Nowadays, what's the cultural trend with people? They want to give a name that no one's ever heard of, a unique name. But what they don't realize is there's a reason why no one's ever chosen that name before, because it's ridiculous. It sounds. I've asked people, what's your name? And they'll say something. I'm like, what? Like, what name? And they'll say it again. And I'm like, I don't even know how to start pronouncing that. I've never heard that word before. How would you even write that? Xavier, then there's Liana and all of. One guy came to me, because I want to call my daughter Liana. I said, you know what Li'an is? In Arabic, Li'an is accusing somebody of adultery. And you want to call your daughter Li'ana, which means one who is basically accused of adultery. You don't even know what they mean. You're just stupid. They sound odd, somewhat different. You've heard Rihanna, now you're thinking of, let's go for something else that's a bit, out there, hip-hop type name. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, give the child a good name. Ultimately, who does the responsibility land with? Is the father, right? Give him a good education. Who's responsible for the good education? the father. Now, again, when we do the parenting course, I'll mention this. Where do people normally send their children for education? School. But whose responsibility is it to educate the child? Father's. Father chooses to send the child to school. So the father is delegating education of the child to who? To school. So can you just allow school to teach a child and think you have no responsibility regarding the education? So I'll give you my example. My son went to school until he was in year 4, March last year. I wasn't happy with how school was educating him. Now, I could, like most parents, be like, well, what option do I have? They have to go to school. What can you do? I'll just have to deal with it. Or I'll just have to turn a blind eye to whatever I'm not happy about. Or I'll have to try looking for a better school. I'm start thinking now, whose responsibility is it for him to have a good education? Mine. I can either then choose to educate him myself, or I can choose to send him to school. But I can't just send him to a school and pretend like it's not my responsibility anymore. Even though you're sending him to school, it's still my responsibility. So I then chose to homeschool my son. So now my son has a maths tutor, he has an English tutor, he has a science tutor. He has 3 tutors, they teach him the national curriculum, and he's further on now than he would be if he was at school. The council have come out to see me 2 weeks ago, and they've basically said that we're so happy with the provision you've got in place for your child. We're not allowed to say this, but he's getting a better education at home than he would if he were at school. And we don't need to see you for another year. Next day she calls, speaks to my wife and says, actually, we don't need to see you for 2 years now. We're happy with what the provision is in place. Whose responsibility is the education? It's mine. It's my job to educate him. And the education is not just English, maths, and science. Like now, what does Isha start around 10:30? If kids are going to go to school tomorrow, are they going to be doing Isha before they go to bed? No. Whether they're 10, 11, 12, whether they've reached puberty, whether they haven't reached puberty, they're going to bed 9 o'clock, 9:30. So where's educating them regarding deen? Kids who go to school in the morning, are they waking up for Fajr? No. So then where's educating them about the obligatory duties? Mums and dads are not waking the children up in the morning for Fajr because they got to go to school, they got to go to college, they got to go to university, they got to go to school, they got to go to work. You're not letting them read Isha at night time because they got to go to bed. So what takes priority? The dunya and the world and education and work takes priority over deen. And this is a great shame. So then I thought, okay, if I take him out of school, he can read Isha before he goes to bed. He's going to be waking up for Fajr. He can have a sleep in on the days that he hasn't got any class. Friday morning, he sleeps in. Why? Because every other day he's waking up early. He's reading all his namaz. He's reading Quran every day, quarter juz. I'm happy. Right? I want to raise a pious, Muslim, well-rounded, well-educated child. I'd rather he read his salah and be good at maths than not read his salah and be amazing at maths. Because in the grave, what matters? The fact that you're a Muslim, your Islam, your deen, what happens on the Day of Judgment? What's going to go into the scales is not, algebra and arithmetic and geometry. That doesn't have any bearing in the scales on the Day of Judgment. What has a bearing on the scale of judgment is the deeds of the child, the deeds of the individual, the deeds of this person. So our aim is to build Muslims, not mathematicians. I'm not saying they shouldn't become mathematicians and doctors and everything else, but that's secondary. What's primary is that we build Muslims. And people don't see that. They think, no, grades and A-levels. And that there's children now who haven't been coming to my Islamic studies class. Why? Because they've got SATs. Yeah? They've got SATs. So they've not been coming to the Islamic studies class. And I'm teaching basic, very important things in the Islamic studies class. So 2-hour lesson, they're not coming to because they've got SATs. But this Wednesday, they've got their Islamic studies test. Now, if this was school week, would they miss school for the Islamic studies test? No. But they'll miss Islamic college for school. But I'm teaching them how to pray and how to wash and how to fast and how to fulfill the sunnahs of eating and drinking and what's halal and what's haram, etc. And how to be truthful and honest and trustworthy. So they'll miss madrasa and they'll miss Islamic college for school, but they won't miss school for Islamic studies. If I'm teaching children Aqidah, beliefs, would a parent say, sorry, school, he can't come today because he's going to be learning with Ustad all day. learning about his Aqidah and his fundamental beliefs. No chance. Whereas they'll miss learning Aqidah for going to school to learn geography about the North Pole and the South Pole. So when it comes to parents, ultimately, the good education is the duty of the parents. In particular, it is the father, the dad is responsible for providing his child with a good education. So this is why I haven't always been a fan of homeschooling. Some people do it well, some people don't do it so well. But you've got to do it for the right reasons. I'm doing it because ultimately I'm responsible, according to the teaching of Islam, for providing my child with a good education. And I feel I can do a better job of that, and I can build a better connection with him, and I can build a better influence with him as well. So this is when he's at home, what am I building with him? Connection. If I take him out on a mountain walk in the Yorkshire Dales, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours is with me, what am I building with him? Connection. Because I've got the connection with him, then I'm hoping that throughout his life, I'll be able to influence him. Listen to me rather than listen to his friends. Listen to me rather than listen to somebody else. He won't listen to his uncles. He won't listen to anyone. He listens to me. If his uncle tells him to do something, he says, no, I need to speak to my dad about this. Because I'm not doing anything that without discussing it with my dad. So he's using me as a guide now. And of course, I'm going to guide him the right way. Right? And this is the whole idea. So marry him off when he reaches puberty. So I wouldn't, let him reach his puberty at the age of 13, 14. I'm not going to marry him off at that age. But between the age of like 18 to 21, I'm going to be considering it. But what's it going to be down to? How mature he is, how much he's developed, whether he's earning. So I'm trying to bring him up in a way where he understands, and I'm trying to kind of get him ready for marriage. People say, I'm not ready for marriage yet. But then the parents aren't getting him ready for marriage. What I'm doing with my son, who's 10 at the moment, is getting him ready to be develop him, and so he's mature and things like this. And when it comes to 18, 21, something like that, I'll be looking to get him married, right? He'll be ready. So one thing is me getting him ready when he's not married. That's not going to happen. He'll be ready, and that's when he's going to get married. But my aim is to get him ready. So what's the idea here? Marry him off when he reaches puberty. Because why not? Why not delay it? The Prophet ﷺ is saying, if you don't marry him off when he reaches puberty, when the hormones have kicked in and he now recognizes the fact that there's an attraction to the opposite gender and things like this, what's going to happen? Commit sin. And then who's the guilt going to be on? The father. Like I've said to so many fathers, your son's got a girlfriend, they're having relations, don't need me to spell it out to you. You're saying no, you're not allowing the marriage to take place. You've got no genuine grounds to say no. You're sinful. Not just them, you're sinful. This is why there's somebody, and his daughter said, look, I'm going to marry this guy. He said, call him, I want to meet him. He's met him. He said, right, I want to meet your family now. Met the family. He says, right, getting married. Within a couple of weeks, they were married. He goes, I'm not having this on my head. You want to be with somebody, you like him, the compatibility is there, I've met the family, I'm happy, get married. There's no way I'm going to string this along and I know what you're doing and I'm going to carry on allowing this to happen. No, you get married. That's it. I'm not having the guilt on my head of you committing sin. So the idea here is to get the children married. But what happens in our society? The focus is on education, then it's on university, then it's on working, then it's on earning. People reach their late 20s, 30s, mid 30s. Obviously, everyone has different scenario, but I'm talking about a general norm within the community. People know their daughters are committing zina. People know their sons are committing zina. Parents are not stupid. They know what's going on, but they still won't prioritize marriage. Whereas what the Prophet ﷺ is saying, give him a good name, give him a good education. When he reaches puberty, marry him off. If you don't, the guilt rests upon the father because you're blocking him from fulfilling the natural process of marriage. Right? If I'm still alive, there's no way my son's not going to be married by the age of 30, 25. I'm getting him ready early as possible. Time comes, we get married. Right? Similarly, if I had daughters, I'd be the same thing. 18 to 21, I'd be looking to raise them in a way where they're ready for marriage at that age and get them married off. Before they go down the route of committing zina, and you turn your blind eye to it, oh, it's okay. Then they're having abortions. So many sisters get in touch, oh, I'm pregnant with my boyfriend's baby. Or I'm pregnant and I don't actually know whose baby it is because I've got 2 boyfriends at the moment. Muslim girls, 2 boyfriends, I don't know who's made me pregnant. I've told both of them, they're both saying the baby's not mine. What do you do? It must be his. No, it must be his, nothing to do with me. This is what's happening. Before it would the 16-year-old non-Muslim English girl who would be walking down the street pushing a pram. Now it's Muslim girls, 16-year-olds, walking down the street pushing a pram. Father's nowhere to be seen. Why? Because the child's been born out of wedlock. The point is, if they can have sexual intercourse, then why can't they get married? Like what I mentioned to you right at the beginning about the law says they can consent to sex. And they can consent to sexual relations, but they can't consent to marriage. Because the rules are designed to kind of create a society which moves away from the responsibilities of marriage and husband and wife and a stable family system, right? So this is important. So the guilt rests upon the father. So now look, I'll give you another example. Let's say my son reaches the age of 21 and I'm saying, okay, I need to look to get him married. And my wife says, for example, no, it's too early, wait till he's 25. What's the situation now? Why I say goes? Because who does the guilt lie upon? Me. She knows this already and she support me in my decision, but I'm going to tell her that, look, the guilt lies upon me if I don't get them married. And I know what you're saying, I take it on board, but he's ready. If he wasn't ready, I'd say, okay, let him wait till he's 25, but he's ready. And if he's ready, then why should we delay? And the guilt lies upon me. And as the head of the household, it's my responsibility. So it's going to happen. And you have to agree. Not, oh, my wife's saying this, you be a man and fulfill your duty. The Prophet says, I'm addressing you here. He's not addressing your wife, is he? He's saying that the father should give him this. He who has a son born should give him a good name and a good education and marry him off. And it's quite explicitly saying the guilt rests upon the father. So I'm saying to the father, the guilt rests upon you. He says, oh, but my wife wears the trousers in the relationship. Well, maybe you need to go back and study the roles and responsibilities of the husband and wife and know who should be wearing the trousers and who should be wearing the jubbah. Right? So here, the next verse of the Quran now, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and those who say, referring to a dua of the people, our Lord, grant us from our wives and our offspring comfort to our eyes and make us an example for the righteous. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. That make us an imam, make us an example, make us a leader for the righteous people. So making this dua, saying, grant us comfort from our wives, grant us comfort from our offspring, and make us an example for the righteous. This is a dua Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran. Any questions about this before we move on to inheritance? Okay. Inheritance now. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, for men is a share of what the parents and close relatives leave. And for women is a share of what the parents and close relatives leave. Be it little or much, an obligatory share. This verse of the Quran tells us a few key things. You know, when someone passes away, who does a man inherit? Yes. Someone passes away, does a woman inherit? Yes. So I'll show you an example on here. So if this person dies, okay, so this is the deceased. Yeah. This person could be man or woman. It doesn't matter. It's the deceased person. This is his dad. This is his mom. Okay. This is his wife or husband. These are his children. Right? So a child, this is a child, this is another child. He dies. Where does his inheritance go? Let's say he leaves behind 100K worth of whatever assets, money, gold, silver, property, cars, whatever. 100K he left behind. Where is this money going to go? Inheritance, where is it going to go? It's going to go to his father. It's going to go to his mother. It's going to go to his wife. It's going to go to the children. Yeah? This is news. Did you know this from before?
So,
Can you see from there?
Yeah.
Go. Did you know this from before? Do you think the children get the inheritance? No. He dies, it goes to his dad, providing his dad's alive. It goes to his mom. Goes to his wife, goes them. Similarly, if this deceased person is a lady, she dies, she leaves 100K worth of assets behind. Where does this go? To her dad, to her mom, to her husband, to her children. Now these children might be theirs, or she might have children from a previous marriage. Similarly, he might have children from a previous marriage, or he might have children from 2 marriages. But the point is, you need to understand that when a person dies, inheritance goes up to parents, across to the spouse, and down to the children.
is the parents first, then children?
It's at the same time. So we have a pot, and that pot now, we will give dad a 6th, we'll give mum a 6th, the wife will get an 8th, and the children will get everything else on a 2-to-1 ratio. The separate inheritance course that I've delivered in the past, I think it was a 2-day course. Yeah, and we did it here. I'm going through the A to Z of inheritance and how everything works. So look, what's being said is, for men is a share of what parents and close relatives leave behind. Okay. And for women is a share of what parents and close relatives leave behind. Be it little or much, an obligatory share. So now I'm saying 100K example there. What if the person's only left £50 behind as inheritance? It will still go 1/6 to dad, 1/6 to mum, 1/8 to the wife, and the rest to the children, a 2-to-1 ratio. So the amount doesn't matter. There's a share for the heirs here. Right? So I'll give you my example now. So let's say this is me. Now I have 1 child. Okay. That's my son now. So I pass away. My parents are both still alive. So whatever assets I leave behind, where they're going to go? My dad will get a share. My mum will get a share. My wife will get her share. And everything else will go to my son. I've got 4 brothers and 1 sister. Will they get anything? No. Who blocks them? My son blocks them. Will they indirectly inherit? Yes. But what will happen is that my money will go to my dad and my mum. When they pass away, then their children will inherit from them, won't they? But then that's them here now. And then their children will inherit from them. So the inheritance goes up, across, and down. We didn't have a child. So now it'll be between wife and the parents. We didn't have parents. Then it'll go wife, and then it'll go to brothers and sisters. Then there's different scenarios depending on who's left behind, etc. But the presence of a son in particular blocks uncles of the son. This is why people are desperate to have a child and the child to be a boy, because then he will inherit, and that man's wealth is going to go to his son, not to his brothers. Daughter gets inheritance as well, but then the daughter will not entirely block the other family members. So then there's a whole, like I said, a whole course where we discuss, okay, in this scenario, this would happen. The daughter gets this much, the mum gets this much, dad gets this much, wife gets this much, and this whole 2-day course just to discuss that. So if you're not married and you don't have children, you don't have a wife, your dad and your mum will inherit from you. And there's a good chance your siblings will inherit from you as well. Let me just check. No, so what happens is the husband, you know, the wife that he has, if that wife of his has children, the husband gets a quarter. If the wife has children, they might be his children, they might be somebody else's children that she had from before. So if the wife has children, the husband gets a quarter. If the wife has no children, the husband gets half. When it comes to the husband now, husband passes away. If the husband has children, the wife gets an 8th. And if the husband has no children, the wife gets a quarter. And we're not going to go into this in any detail because this is not the course for it. But just so you get an idea, what you need to just understand is that when it comes to inheritance, the inheritance goes up, across, and down. Okay. So I'm just going to check this one scenario here. Okay, so we said someone who's what you were saying, yes. So there's someone who's passed away, and he's got no children, he's got no wife, no daughters, grandchildren, anything like that. He's got a father, he's got a mother, okay, and he's got siblings now, yeah. Let's give him 2 brothers and 2 sisters, for example. So this person, we're saying he's not married, so that doesn't apply. He's got no children, that doesn't apply. He's got parents, mom and dad, he's got 2 brothers and he's got 2 sisters. That man now passes away, for example, yeah. What happens now is the mother will get a 6th. Mother will get a 6th. And the father gets everything else. His siblings are blocked. What blocks the siblings? Father. So the father blocks the full brother from receiving any share. And the father also blocks the full sisters from receiving any share. The mother gets a prescribed share of 1/6. And then the father is the only remaining share to receive anything, so he receives the rest of the wealth. So the father will receive from the son. Siblings are blocked because of the dad. But in a scenario where there was no father, just mother, then things will be different. So a guy, he passes away, he leaves a mum behind and leaves 2 brothers and 2 sisters behind, right? In this scenario, do you think that the siblings will inherit? Who blocked him previously? The father blocked him previously. So now what will happen is mother gets the share of 1/6, okay? And then the brothers and sisters will split the rest of the inheritance on a 2-to-1 ratio. The brothers get 2 shares to the sisters 1 share. So that's how it works. So, but you know, these shares, they're already set in the Quran. Nobody can say, I want to give everything to this son, I want to give everything to that son, I want to give everything to my dad, I want to give everything to my spouse. Like if someone now is died, he can't say, I want everything to go to my wife. No.
Wills are not allowed.
Sorry?
Wills are
Wills are allowed, but only up to 1/3 of the value of the estate. Right? So you could have a will, but the will only allow you to spend or allocate 1/3 of the total estate of what you leave behind. The remaining 2/3, you don't have any right over that. That will get apportioned according to Quranic instructions, which is father, mother, spouse, child. You can't give everything to your child because your dad has a share, your mom has a share, your wife has a share, or if it's a lady, your husband has a share. So the key thing here is men inherit and are inherited. Women inherit and are inherited. So a woman, she dies, she leaves wealth behind, people will inherit her. Similarly, if somebody dies, she will inherit as well. So men inherit and women inherit. So they will inherit and they are inherited from, yeah? So little or much, it's an obligatory share. This was mentioned in Surah An-Nisa. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions here, and for you is half of what your wives leave if they have no children. This is what I just mentioned. So what do you get if your wives have no children? Half. And for you is half of what your wives leave if they have no children. Whose children? The wife's children. She might have children from a previous marriage. So the point here is your wife, for you is half of what your wives leave behind if your wives have no children. And if they do have children, for you is 1/4 of what they leave after any bequeath and debt. So you have the total amount, you take away the debt, then they have a will, you take away whatever they've written in their will up to 1/3 of the entire amount. Now, what they've left behind, if they have children, you get 1/4. If they don't have children, you take a half. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, and for them is 1/4 of what you leave. if you have no children. So meaning for your wives, there's 1/4 of what you leave if you have no children. And if you do have children, then for them is 1/8 of what you leave after any bequeath or any debt that you have. So again, you have the total amount, the debt is taken out, the bequeath, the amount that they've put in their will, that's taken out up to 1/3, and then the wives will get an 1/8 if you have children. If you don't have children, they will get a 1/4. Now, just to tie this in with who's financially responsible, husband or wife? Right. Generally, man or woman, man. If you have a brother and sister, and they're both married, right? Brother's married, he's got his wife, sister's married, she's got a husband. Their dad passes away. Who inherits? Brother and sister, right? Let's say he leaves 60K behind worth of assets. How much does she get? 20. How much does he get? He gets double hers, which is 40. Now, somebody might say that's not fair. They should get 30 each. They're both siblings. There was the dad of both of them. They should both get 30 each. The issue now is this. You know, in the brother, when he's married to his wife, who's spending? Him. You know, the sister's married, isn't she, to her husband? Who's spending in that relationship? Her husband. So her brother gets 40K, but he has to spend, doesn't he? And she gets 20, but she doesn't have to spend a penny. Similarly, that husband of hers, if he had a sister and their dad died, he's the one who's going to get more. And his sister would get less. So just like his wife has got less compared to her brother, he would get double of his sister. So the point is that, you know, when you tie in the fact that the financial responsibility is on the man, then a 2-to-1 ratio makes sense. And this is the justice of Allah. Now, could you imagine the man's got to spend, and if you did a 50-50 split, how's that fair? 30K she gets, 30K he gets, he has to spend on his family, and she didn't have to spend a penny. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us 2-to-1. 2-to-1 ratio. Yeah, so the husband or the male gets double the share of the female. Brother gets double the share of the sister. So that Islamically, people who don't understand the holistic picture of Islam, they don't see the fact that the man is the one who's responsible for the spending in the family. They be like, oh, why? She should get an equal amount. And there's some stupid fathers as well who say, oh yeah, I'm dying and I know the Quran says a 2-to-1 ratio, but I don't agree with that. I want it to be 50-50 because it's a major sin. Major sin. If you go, you know, if he's saying, you know, I know the Quran is saying this, but I'm going to go against it, that's a major sin. You know, if he says the Quran isn't saying this, he becomes a kafir. He becomes a non-believer. Because he's denying that the Quran says something that the Quran is saying. It's like someone saying, I don't believe in Salah. Oh, but it's mentioned in the Quran. No, it's not. Salah, the obligation of Salah isn't mentioned anywhere in the Quran. Somebody said that, become a kafir. Because they're denying the obligation of something that's in the Quran. And Quran is, you know, dalil kat is something you cannot refuse. It's absolute, right? In its authority, in its evidence. So this is the issue. So the reason why I've included inheritance here, because this is important from a family point of view as well. Now look, if a husband has multiple wives, a man has multiple wives, what's going to happen? Do you know that 8? It's going to be shared, isn't it? So if there's 2 wives and he has children, the 8 will be split between the 2 wives. They'll have 1/16 each. Similarly, if he has no children and he has 2 wives, the wives get a quarter, don't they? And that quarter will be split into an 1/8 and an 1/8. So should one wife know about the other wife? Absolutely. Because they're both entitled to the inheritance from their husband, knowing children and all of these things. So inheritance is important. Both husband and wife, they inherit from each other. What before I move on now, what needs to be clear is every person, every individual has to be clear about what they own. Islam doesn't allow for joint ownership when the shares of ownership are unknown. Let's say me and Kuram have a car. Whose car is it, Kuram? Mine and yours. If you die I'll say it's all mine. His family will say that was Khurram's. I don't know, it's mine. It was ours and now it's mine. No. What would it be like? It's 50-50, mine and yours. I pass away, you'll say, look, this was his, 50% of this car is his, and I'll give you the money for the car if you want. Here's the money. It's a 10 grand car. Here's 5 grand, his share. I die, you can't pretend the car's all yours. So what do husband and wife do? They'll have a joint account and they'll have money in the joint account. And when it comes to zakat, now who's going to pay zakat on that money? Whose is it? If you say it's 50-50, then she pays zakat on 50 and he pays zakat on 50. If it's savings and it meets all the zakat criteria. But you can't say, no, it's ours. Well, ours by what split? And my dad, I said to him, Dad, whose house is this? His house that he lives in with my mom and my brother and family. Whose house is this? And we've had various discussions and it goes, it's mine and your mom's. I says, what ratio, what split? And then after discussing with him, we've agreed that it's 50-50. So he's saying 50% of the house is mine and 50% is your mom's. But who bought the house? Who put the deposit down? Who paid it off? Mom never worked. Dad's paid it off. But that doesn't matter. It's not all dad's house. So dad is saying half's your mom's and half's mine. So he's gifted her technically 50% of the house. So now if my dad passes away, what's definitely secure for my mom? Her 50% of the house. What's going to go into the inheritance pot? Dad's 50%. But if it was all my dad's house, not my mom's at all, if my dad passes away, what's going to go into the pot? 100%. Now, does that put my mom in a better position or a worse position? If the entire house is my dad, that puts my mom in a more vulnerable position because she is now going to get 1/8 of the entire house. Whereas if 50% of the house is hers, then the 50% that's my dad, she gets 1/8 of that. So she gets a 50% which is hers anyway, plus 1/8. Which means technically she might even be strong in a position to say, I'll buy you guys out and this is my house now. I'm living here. But you have sons and daughters, they'll be like, Mom, you take your 8 and see you later. Go to a care home or something. So it's important for the spouses to be clear about who owns what. Right? What does, who owns what? How much does the husband own? How much does the wife own? If you buy something with somebody, who owns what? Because it can't be yours and mine at the same time. You can't own something 100% and I own it 100% at the same time. Okay?
You know the question, the joint account that you have,
Yeah.
with your wife. Say it's 50-50, but you put more money in this amount. I don't know if you've agreed it's 50-50.
If you've agreed 50-50, then the idea will be you put the money in. But what that'll technically mean is you just gifting her
Yeah.
whatever the amount. Let's say, for example, it's empty. Here's a joint account. You put £1,000 in and you say it's 50-50. You just gifted her £500 now.
Yeah.
If
And when it comes to the card, you bought like
it comes to zakat, she owns 500, you own 500. You put another £1,000 in a month later and the account's 50-50. You'll say that's £1,000 yours, £1,000 mine. It doesn't matter who's putting it in. What matters, what you've agreed is to ownership. It's like you earning £1,000 coming home and saying to your wife, here's 500 quid yours and here's 500 quid mine. That's how it works. Okay. So the key thing is everybody needs to be clear about what they own. Okay. What belongs to them. They can have shared accounts, no problem. I think it's a good thing. But as long as they're clear about who owns what from an inheritance point of view, etc. It's not, I wouldn't, I think it's a good idea to have like a husband's got his own account, wife's got her own account, and then they've got a joint account as well. I think that's good. Yeah. That might be the account where they pay their bills from, the direct debits and everything like that. And, sometimes you put money in an account and banks decide to freeze it for whatever reason, right? You might make a charitable donation to a charity. They might be like, hold on, someone dodgy going on, we're going to freeze your account for you. So having all of your money in the account's not good as well. So it's good to have some cash, some in the account, but not all in one account, some in this account, some in that account. Spread your money out. Okay. I won't go into any more detail with you, yeah, about that. But I'm old, that's why I have the experience of, you spread things out a little bit. Okay. So that's important, the split. It's like now, for example, the car that I drive, it's not my car. My wife owns that car. She's the registered keeper. She's the one who bought it. I die, is that car going to go into the pot? Can my dad, mom and dad and my son even claim, right? They can't. My son and my parents cannot claim any share of that car. That's my wife's car. She bought it. It's not, she's letting me drive it. I'm borrowing her car, basically. She's got her own car, but then that's her car as well. So we need to be clear about that. Because if I'm like, oh, this is my car, then I pass away, then that has to go into the pot. My wife hasn't gifted that to me. It belongs to her. Yeah, she bought it. It belongs to her. Like Ismail was joking with me last time. He says, oh, you're driving a Beamer. I said, this is my wife's. You might look, oh, it's a BMW, but it's my wife's car. You know, it's not even mine. So this is important to understand who owns what. Okay, so living arrangements and family dynamics, which we'll discuss. Then we're going to come to discuss a few things regarding marital problems, depending how we get that. And then divorce and separation, we will discuss, inshallah. I reckon we can cover that over one session. Maybe might need the 2 sessions, but we'll see what goes on. So living arrangements and family dynamics. So what are the pros and cons of living independently? Meaning living, husband and wife living separately from other family members. First of all, what's the Islamic ruling regarding this? Right, the husband provides a separate accommodation to the rest of his family. What are the pros of living separately? Privacy is one thing. Bring your kids up how you want. Independence financially, you're more control. You're having to take on the burden of responsibility, right? What are the pros?
Family politics.
Stay away from family politics. There you got your own space. You make the rules. You run things how you want to run them. Okay, so lots of positives for that. If you have a fallout, it's just you two. The whole family is not involved. Right? So you're able to strike a balance between having family, but not always being with the family. Yeah. What are some of the cons of living independently? Affordability may be one thing. Yeah. At least on the flip side, if you had a child and your grandparents living with the child, you can share the raising of the children. You could be more freer. Yeah. In terms of, like my brother lives with my parents. Every 2-3 months, he's going here, sometimes going there. Now he's going to Scotland. Now he's in Germany. Then he's in Egypt. He's chilling. Why? Because he's living, my parents, they live with my parents. He's got 2 children. And my mum does a lot with my nephews. But if he was living separately, he'd struggle to have that freedom, right? So there are cons of living. The cons of living independently, maybe you might not spend enough time. As sometimes guys will say to their wife, "I'll spend time with my mum and get to know her better." So you can build stronger bonds. For example, if you're living under the same house, but then sometimes them bonds come under pressure from being, with each other all the time. There's one of my brothers. He's got a friend, and the first time I met this friend of his, I go, I've heard a lot about you, and I go about my brother. He said, see, I call Bash. I said, Bash is a really good guy. He's a really good friend. Whenever you need him, he's always there. He says, one problem. So this guy, Bash, is getting happy now, thinking about my brother who said he's a really good guy and he's a close friend of mine. He goes, Bash is a brilliant guy. He's always there when you need him. He says, the problem is, though, he's always there when you don't need him as well. Right? So I was like joking with him. And, so I said, one thing is being there when you need somebody. But then someone's being there when you don't need them as well. It's a bit too much, isn't it? It's about getting that balance. So overall, I always encourage people, live independently. Yes, you need to look after your parents, but that doesn't mean the same thing as living with them, right? So many issues I deal with would not have happened if people were living separately, right? I can't emphasize this point enough. You don't have to buy a house. You can rent a house. You can rent, have it small, but it's your own, right? I strongly encourage that. My wife has never lived with my parents. And I'm glad that that's the case because she has a good relationship with them now. I know if she did live with my parents, that would put my relationship with my parents under strain and my wife's relationship with my parents under strain as well. So living separately is key. Who will be pushing for independent living? The ladies. And who's going to be pushing for joint living? The men. But really, what should the man do? He should take the responsibility. And without the lady saying, live independently, he's saying, we're going to. Like someone's discussing marriage and the guy says, look, I've got my own house. And I'm going to live independently. Or I live with my parents at the moment, but when I get married, I'm moving out from day one. That is a plus as far as overall things are concerned. The lady should be like that. That's good. Because that means now we've got our own space, you know, it's a good move. So when he says, oh, we're going to live 6 months with my parents or 2 years with my parents, etc., that's not a good sign. She should try and encourage him to follow the rules of the Sharia in terms of look, own place. But then what ends up happening, parents say, oh, she's trying to influence you, she's trying to take our son away from us. It's not like that. Look at study the books of Islam and Islamic law. It's mentioned there. Nothing to do with a wife taking a husband away from the parents or anything like that. It's about being a man and being independent. Like your dad doesn't still live with his mom, does he? Right? Your dad moved out. He's not living with his mom anymore. He may have lived with her for some time, but he's moved out. So you move out as well. And parents shouldn't take it badly. It's nothing personal. This is life. Okay. So pros and cons of living. And then what are the pros and cons of living with extended family? We've already discussed. We've discussed both of these kind of in together. So the pros of living with an extended family, you've got family support. You've got their experience of how to raise a child. People are they looking after the child. You got more people to also, for example, the child may pick up multiple languages. Right. So if you've got children living with their grandparents, they'll pick up the language. Living separately, they might only pick up English, not Punjabi or Urdu or any other language anybody may speak. So there's pros and cons of both, right? What are also the pros and what are the cons of living with an extended family when it comes to mahram, non-mahrams? Your issue with brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, right? I've told you there's someone who is saying to me, I came home and found my brother in bed with my wife. And then my wife's got pregnant and she's had a disabled child. He goes, and that's not my child. That'll be his. His parents have found out and they're saying, oh, you just leave. He goes, I've divorced her. Right? So he goes, come home, my brother's in bed with my wife. And she's from Pakistan. And she's cousin sister as well. So this is what happens when you live together. These shaitans, the third, when there's only two. And this guy is already married, he's got children. He's the younger brother, he's married, he's got children. And he's sleeping with his elder brother's wife in their bedroom in the same house that they live in. And if he's caught on once, how many times has it happened? Probably happened 1,000 times, and now they've got caught. And a lot of this happens because of the joint family living. There's one couple, husband and wife, and another, so there's a brother and sister, and the brother is married, and the sister, she's married. But the other two people, they're not related to each other in any way. Do you get it? So you got brother and sister, yeah? The brother gets married, and his sister gets married. But their respective spouses, they're not related to each other in any way. They were living together. Brother and sister living together with their spouses. Brother and sister go to work. These two are playing on PlayStation at home. They're not related in any way, but they're living in the same house. Who's going to suspect anything? Who's going to say anything? Right? So these are things to be aware of. Dealing with marital problems now then. Okay. So when it comes to marital problems, everybody has issues. There's no such thing as a marriage where there's not going to be any issues. You know why? Because you're two independent people with independent minds, and now you're linked to each other in a way where everything one person does affects the other. Every decision you make, every choice you make, whatever you want to do affects the other person because you're so closely linked together. And that can cause issues. You want to do something the other spouse doesn't want to do. They want to do something you don't want to do. They might have a habit that you don't like. You don't like something. So these issues take place. So what's step one in dealing with marital problems and issues? Or what's the first step in avoiding these problems is being clear about your roles, your responsibilities, the expectations, all of this. Communication is very, very important. Now, if you have issues, the first step is to privately discuss your issues and work together to resolve them. Between who? Between both spouses. Should your children find out that you're having issues? No. Should your friends know? You've had an argument with your husband. Are you going to be WhatsApping your best friend straight away, or the group that you've got, you and your friends? I've just had an argument with my husband. He said this, I said that. Your friends are going to say this to him. I said this to my husband yesterday. You try this as well. Right? Throw something at him that might, It makes it worse. So what happens? You don't tell your parents, you don't tell your friends, you don't tell the neighbors, you don't tell anybody. You've got an issue, you just sort it out between yourselves and you resolve the issue between yourselves. So who should find out other than you two? Nobody. And this should be the case 90-something% of the time. You've had an issue, you just sort it out between yourselves. There's no need to escalate the issue, involve the local imam, involve your mom and dad, involve your friends and family, call your brother down, call your sister down. You've had an issue, send your wife to her parents' house. So many guys will do this. You'll have an issue with the wife, go to your mom's house, go to your dad's. But mom and dad are not going to know that. Why is she turning up at 12 o'clock at night? They know that we're going to have an argument or we've had an issue. This is the wrong way of dealing with it. So you just sort it out between yourselves. And if they have had an issue and one person needs to leave to kind of calm down, who should go? The man or the woman? The man should go. Husband and wife, they've had an issue. She stays put, you go. Go check into a hotel somewhere for the night. Calm down, come back tomorrow. Why should she have to go in a vulnerable state, leave the house, go back to her parents' house? Her parents be like, what's happened here? We gave our daughter away and now she's come crying back after 2 weeks. So you deal with the issues yourself. You don't need to tell anybody about it. You don't need to tell your parents, your mom, your dad, your best friend, anybody. You just deal with it. Why? Because these things happen all the time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells in the Quran, the meaning of which is, and if you fear dissension between the two, then send an arbitrator from his people, an arbitrator from her people. If they both desire reconciliation, Allah will cause it between them. Indeed, Allah is ever knowing and acquainted with all things. So now, you know, after step one, you've tried sorting issues out between yourselves and it's happened, it's worked. Then you've had the same issues again. Repeatedly, the issues are happening and you're not able to sort them out yourselves. But you've tried sorting them out yourselves. What do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if you fear that there's a fallout, an argument, a rift between the two, what should happen? An arbitrator from his side should come and an arbitrator from her side should come. Yeah? And these two should act as judges. And what should they judge? According to Quran and Sunnah. They should listen to her side, listen to his side, and then they should agree, make an agreement. And then they should tell both that this is the issue, this is how we are telling you to resolve the issue, this is how we recreate the balance. You know, when there's issues, basically that means there's an imbalance somewhere. How do we recreate the balance? We have to revise the expectations, we have to be aware of our roles and responsibilities, etc. Someone has to compromise, someone has to step back a little bit. So now, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is, what I've summarized in step 2 is involve a knowledgeable, just and wise person from each of the families. Work together to resolve the issues. So it's been escalated now, hasn't it? The two people themselves have not been able to deal with the issue. Now what are they doing? They're escalating the issue and involving family. But, you know, people who come to me, I say to them, we're having issues with each other, can we come and see you? The actual thing to do is involve a knowledgeable, wise, just person from both families, one from each family. What do people struggle to find? Just that. They'll say, I don't have anyone in my family who's knowledgeable. They're all as stupid as each other when it comes to Islam and Deen. Right? They're thick when it comes to fiqh. They don't know about how to do wuzu properly, never mind Islamic law and what the Quran and Sunnah says. They're not just because they take sides with each other. They're biased and they're not wise. They're very rash, angry. Can you not tell your dad? My dad will kick off. My dad will pull the baseball bats out. Can you tell your mom? My mom will start screaming and she'll end up having a heart attack or something like that. Everyone's so temperamental. There's no struggling to find knowledgeable, just wise people to sit down and say, look, let's sort this out. I've dealt with many situations where now there isn't a knowledgeable, just wise person. So I have to step in. I'm not saying I am these things, but I'm more knowledgeable, just and wise than most people, right? Because of the understanding of Quran and Sunnah and the role that you have. So now I've had to get involved. Why? Because there's no one to take that role. These just wise, knowledgeable people don't exist anymore. Because people don't want knowledge. They don't want to be just, they want to give favoritism to whoever their family members are. They don't want to be wise about anything. They just want to create issues and cause more rifts and divides and explode. Like dad used to be the kind of, dad's supposed to be someone who's a calm head. Nowadays, dad's a hothead. Dad's the one who's, going crazy. People don't even tell their dads because he's going to kick off and then end up being arrested or something. Rather he's supposed to be sorting things out. So involve somebody like that to resolve the issue. Now, let's say the wise person, the knowledgeable person from each family doesn't work or doesn't exist. That's when then you see an Islamic scholar or an Islamic marriage counselor who you can sit with, discuss your issues, and then you deal with them. So what I do, for example, is people come to me, I listen to both people, and then I will tell them where they're being reasonable and I will tell them where they're being unreasonable. I will tell them who's being right here and who's being wrong. I don't take sides. And I'll tell them where the problem, where the imbalance is and how to regain the balance again. Ultimately, it's down to them to make it work. But my job is because each one is kind of blinded by their own ego or their own, no, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. And I'm like, no, you're wrong in this situation. And you're wrong in this situation. And the way you handled it is wrong because of this reason, right? So then I'll tell them straight as it is. They hear the truth. I've got no reason to be biased. They go away. They follow my advice in terms of what I told them to work on. They can sort things out. Because what happens is, privately discussing to work to resolve the issues, it doesn't work sometimes because sometimes people cannot see their own faults. So when they come to me, I help them see their own faults and where the problem is. That's where we resolve. That's step 2. Now, what happens is, like I said, if step 2 isn't there, you jump into step 3, right? Which is involving someone like me. But often people go from step 1 to step 3. Why? Because step 2 people don't exist. But the proper way should be that you go to step 1, sort things out yourself. If not, you go step 2. If not, then step 3. What I'll then advise people is, once we've gone through some marriage counseling, we've discussed things depending on the severity of what's going on and all of that. Before we start talking about divorce, I get people to separate from each other for a set duration of time. For example, there was a couple, I said, live separately for 1 month and then come and see me in 1 month's time. What do I want to do? I want people to realize what life is like without each other. I want to experience, because when you're married and you're having issues, people are thinking, I'd be better off without you. Now they're thinking about separation, divorce. I'm saying, you know what? Forget about divorce and separation. Let's just have a little trial. You've got kids. Who's picking them up from school? Who's dropping them off? Who's going to go to the parents' evening? Who's going to take them to their appointments? What are you doing about food, clothing, shelter? What are you doing about all the hobbies? Swimming you're taking them. Someone's taking them martial arts classes. What are you going to do? How's life going to be like if you're both living separately? You both got your own bills to pay, your own rent to pay. So now, is life better with each other or is life better without each other? So the idea is that if you can't get on with each other, live separately for an agreed duration of time, experience life without each other. But what's the good thing here? You're still married. You could just come back. Because what happens is sometimes when I'm doing marriage counseling, people are so set. No, I'm right. I'm not accepting this. I'm right. Or I want out. I don't want her anymore. She's saying, I don't want him anymore. So look, let's not jump to divorce. But live separately. Because what is divorce going to do? It's going to mean you have to be separate. So I'm saying don't go down the divorce route. Just live separate and see what happens. Then we'll sit down, and once your brains cool down a little bit, and now you come to some realization, because when you're laying there in bed by yourself and thinking you have to do your own cooking and your own cleaning, and there's no one to ask you how you are or what's going on, and your wife's not there doing your head in anymore or whatever, then you'll appreciate her that actually she weren't doing my head in, she was just caring about me. So then, if still they've lived separately and they think, you know what, separate life was good. We've lived separately and it's made me realize separation is going to bring me peace and happiness, and I actually prefer that separate life than together life. Then we initiate divorce proceedings and discuss being separate. But can you see the steps to it? Like if you had an argument, you jump to step 5 straight away and initiate divorce proceedings, right? What you do is you discuss the issues, then you involve family members. I deliberately tell people to miss out step 2 now, because the family members, and I'll finish with this point now. I'll have, for example, people saying to me, can you come to our house for some marriage counseling? I said, no. Okay, my mom will be there, my dad and my aunties and my uncle. No chance. You think I'm going to come to somebody's house? Firstly, I don't go to anybody's house. Somebody wants to see me, they come to me. I don't go to anybody's house for anything. I used to in the past. right? When I was younger and less experience in what can kick off and what can happen. But look, if they don't like what I'm saying, kick me out of the house. Whose bestie is that? Mine. I said, no, you come to me if you want to see me. I don't come to you. So my mom will be there, my dad will be there, one person will be crying, the other will be screaming, then they start kicking off. Brothers just turned up, aunties just turned up from Luton because she's heard someone's going on now. Everybody's getting involved. No, you come here, husband and wife, that's it. You come and see me, we discuss things. Right? So going to somebody's house and kicking off and all of these things, it just gets worse. Or we thought you'd come to our house. No, I'm not a Molvi. That, you know, you give him 20 quid and he comes to your house and does hatam for you, or comes to your house to kind of at your beck and call. Right? You come and see me, we'll discuss things. So these are the steps that you have to take. You don't just jump to the divorce proceedings. You need professional marriage counseling to kind of help navigate the problems that you're having, and then you go step by step. So next week, inshallah, what we'll do is we'll discuss divorce and separation. There's 4 ways of separation. Divorce is one. There's 3 others. I will discuss all of them, inshallah, next week. And then we'll see how much we get covered next week. Assalamu alaikum.